What is going on? I want to welcome you from F Corp for today, Tuesday, October 4th, aka the beginning of Detroit basketball. Okay, I can't do that right now. I'm Sean Murphy, but dude, for real, today's the beginning of Pistons basketball. The Pistons season begins, specifically Pistons preseason action kicks off tonight in New York against the New York Knicks in the Madison Square Garden. As of right now, there are no Pistons that are on the injury report. I would expect almost everyone on the roster to play at least a little bit during this game. As far as how much and what to really expect, not entirely sure on that. Guys like Kate Cunningham, Jaden Ivey will certainly be getting touches. You would imagine that the starting lineup that you would expect to start the season might start the game. However, since it is preseason basketball, you would expect that they're going to be playing with some rotations, not really locked or committed to any lineups at this point. However, the thing that's going to be the most interesting during these matchups is going to be these position lineups, these position battles, these position competitions, specifically against guys like Hamidou Diallo, Killian Hayes, everything that's going to be going on in the backcourt. Also, guys like Alec Burks when he's finally available to play and cleared for basketball action. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens there, but also to see what some of the guys do in the front court. We're talking about position battles. What's going on with Bojan Bogdanovic and Marvin Bagley? Who's going to be starting day one there? I would imagine that since the Pistons went out and used assets and acquired a guy like Bojan to come in, they more than likely reports are suggesting that he's going to be extended beyond this season. It seems like he's a core centerpiece of veteran presence that the Pistons really want. It seems like he would bring value either in the starting lineup or the bench. However, if you were to ask what my hunch is going to be, I would expect Bojan Bogdanovic to be starting. However, he's going to bring a lot of value again wherever he is. Bojan is such a solid basketball player. He's a bucket from wherever he is on the court. I would imagine one of the things that you're going to expect to see tonight is obviously, even though he's still learning the system, he's only been a Piston for about a week now. He's going to look solid. He's going to show why the Pistons traded for him. He's just a solid NBA player that does what he does. That's who Bojan is. But beyond that, I think also you're going to see guys like Jaden Ivey really go out and try to, impress and shine and have a couple moments during this game because specifically, not only is it his first NBA action, his first true NBA minutes, but this is the Garden. I mean, the Pistons are going to be able to open their preseason, one of the most iconic venues in the world. And even though it is preseason action, that doesn't mean that there aren't going to be eyes on this one, especially because this is one of the only games the Pistons will have this year that is on national television. This game is going to be on TNT. So we're going to get some form of NBA coverage for this. Not sure if the Inside the NBA crew is actually going to be covering this game tonight, seeing that it's hard to tell if those guys will actually show up for preseason action. However, it's still cool nonetheless for the Pistons to have that opportunity to play on national TV, on TNT, with the bright lights in the mecca of the basketball world. And it's going to be interesting in particular to see that matchup against the New York Knicks, especially with how weird of an offseason that they had. Obviously, they shipped the entire farm, including half of their roster, to go to us to get to go and get Jalen Brunson, when in reality, that it's all reports suggested that they really wanted Jaden Ivey from us, is the reality of it. Although we didn't let that happen. Thank you, Troy Weaver. Shout out to you, my guy. But this nucleus that they have of Jalen Brunson, RJ Barrett, and Julius Randle. It's going to be interesting to see how they match up against Detroit. I think that undersized backcourt is going to be something that's going to be a struggle for New York in this game. I think with Cade and Ivy, I think they can give a lot of problems on the defensive end. But I think in particular, I'm excited to see the glimpse of what year two Cade is going to look like. And I just knowing Cade, I think the fact that this game is going to be nationally televised, I think if he does get some action in the first half and in the first couple quarters, I think Cade's going to put on, and I think he's going to have a pretty darn good night. And I'm just curious to see, what the tone is going to be, what the differences in the sets are going to be, because this team has talked about how, they both want to play that Piston style of basketball and how much of a priority it is for this team on the defensive end. Dwayne Casey at the open practice said that a goal for this team was to be one of the best teams in the NBA on the defensive end. So even though this is preseason action, I'm expecting Detroit to come out and set the tone on the defensive end early and to set that tone often. And so for them, how do they do that? What type of guys are going to be coming in and what type of rotations will we see? I'm excited to see if we get that first glimpse of that three guard lineup tonight. And also, I hope we see a continuation of that aggression from Killian Hayes that we've not only seen him talk about in media day, but also that we've seen him show in the practice sessions that we've seen. So, with Killian's change in his jump shot, I'm excited to see what that looks like in game action, how much of his form is truly different, because it's one thing to change your mechanics and to go over and practice a new jump shot over the off season, but it's a whole other thing to do it in game motion, right? Like a lot of guys, you even see like in the NFL, like I remember Tim Tebow trying to change his throwing motion like 5 different times throughout his career. But the reality was once game action was going, once he hit hut, once the ball was in his hands, like he would just revert back to his old throwing motion. That's just how it works, right? Because you're just used to doing what you've always done. So with Killian, will he actually have that new form, fully, in motion? Is that something that will stick throughout the season, and how will that affect his, shooting percentages? Also, will his points per game go up? What's that usage opportunity going to be like? And what's that second unit going to be like with Killian this season? I would argue that not only will this be our most talented starting lineup that we've had in years, but this is going to be our most talented secondary unit as well. So for Detroit, all in all, I think the other thing that's going to be the most interesting piece of this as well is as the game gets on later, in action, this is very similar to the NFL in the fact that you have guys that are fighting for jobs. You have guys that are fighting for spots in the rotation. And just to name a few, I think, guys like, obviously, I don't think Isaiah Livers is fighting for his spot in the rotation, but he's certainly setting a statement for where he wants to be in the rotation, because Isaiah Livers is a guy that, before this season was playing for the Motor City Cruise. And I can imagine that a goal internally for him is to never play for the Motor City Cruise again. And so I think he's going to want to set a strong tone this season, both on the offensive end, but also on the defensive end. I think you're also looking at guys like Hamidou Diallo, who he believes that he should probably be a starter. But the reality is he's got to prove why he's got to be on Detroit and got to be in this system in the long term, why the Detroit should be thinking about a contract extension for Hamidou Diallo over these next couple of years as the Pistons have cap space, because Detroit could decide to go in a different direction and to try and upgrade at that position. And so he needs to showcase how he's improved as well, where Hamidou's evolved as a player, because I think Hamidou is a great player and I think he brings a lot of great things to the team. But at the end of the day, if he doesn't evolve his game, then there's going to be other guys that are better. That's just the way that this business works. But also, I'm incredibly excited to see Jalen Duren and what that looks like on an NBA court. Specifically, I hope he gets matched up against a guy like Mitchell Robinson a little bit during this game. And I'm curious to see what the size comparison is like. I'm curious to see how he does against the physicality of other bigs in the league, because I think he's going to do just fine. I think he's perfectly physical himself. Troy Weaver previously said in an interview on 97.1 that he doesn't see Jalen Duren as a G League guy. He sees Jalen Duren as an NBA guy, which I firmly believe and I firmly agree with. I think preseason is going to be a great opportunity for a guy like Jalen Duren to showcase what he can do right now, but also give him the opportunity to go back to camp, go back to the drawing board, and realize where he needs to improve right now. Because at the end of the day, the biggest benefit of preseason action is that you're getting action and you're getting reps against other NBA players in a real NBA setting, the closest thing that you can replicate to true NBA action. And so for these guys to be able to go out and to play against a team that just a couple years ago was in the playoffs, a team that is still a top 10 team defensively, that is coached by Tom Thibodeau and is not going to give you an easy night at all. This is something that is a great first game for the Pistons to have for the preseason. It's a great night and an opportunity for them to set the tone for where they want to go the rest of the year. But at the end of the day, it is just that. It is preseason action. So remember, it's one game of basketball and it's one game of preseason basketball. So all in all, I would expect the starters to play about 15 minutes tonight. I would expect, guys like Sadiq Bey and Cade Cunningham in particular are probably going to get the shortest leashes as far as when they're going to be coming off the court. I would imagine that rookies are still going to get a decent amount of exposure and playing time as well, just because of how valuable those reps are. But again, in that second half, in the third or fourth quarter, that's when guys like Buddy Boeheim are going to be out there. That's going to be, when guys deeper in our rotation, guys that are, like Jules Bernard are going to be on the court. That's their opportunity. That's when Alec Burks is going to be able to come out in the Garden again and have his opportunity to make a statement and showcase why he should be on this Pistons roster. So with that, what are you curious to see and what players are you excited to watch tonight in Detroit's preseason action? Let me know in the comment section down below, but also be sure to be tuned in to Woodward Sports, Woodward Pistons, and From Half Court for all of the coverage leading out of this game, talking about all the other preseason action, but also for an entire season of Pistons and NBA coverage. You're not going to get anything better from anywhere else. So be sure you're clicking subscribe and liking that video. But with that, thank you all so much for tuning in, and we will catch you guys next time from Half Court. Be sure you subscribe.